Hey, good evening, race fans, and welcome back to another inside edition of the Voice of Victory Lane podcast with Kip Thompson. Part one of tonight's show is being brought to you in part by Barrier Fencing Supply out of Supply, North Carolina. Huge wholesaler in the aluminum fence business. They've got really big bulk package pricing, and we're going to hear from them a little bit later on this evening in our show. Tonight, we have a very special guest. I've been super excited about having this young man on the show for some time now. We've finally been able to catch up with him. He's drives cars all over the place. He runs in several different classes, several different cars. And we would like to welcome, on behalf of the Voice of Victory Lane podcast, Daniel Adam of Adam Family Racing. Hey, man, good evening and welcome to the show. We're super excited to have you on tonight.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. First time on a podcast, so this should be pretty fun.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun, man, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So you wear many hats around the racetrack. You drive several different type cars. You're into legends. You run limited late models. You do run around for some of the bigger races with super late models. And before we get into talking about driving different cars, let's just kind of let our fans know, for you, the Cape Fear kid who is right there in the heart of Fayetteville, been around there for a long time. Everybody knows who you are, driving the number 75. Let's talk about how racing got started for you and what got your interest started in becoming a race car driver.
So I'd say it all started when I was born. My dad was racing UMP modifieds and super late models in the Midwest, and every day I'd be at the shop and in the cars messing around with all those guys, and I'm still friends with a ton of the people he used to race for and with. So it all started there, watching him race until I was about 8 or 9. We moved down here, and he had to get out of it, so we were out of it for a while, and I had to beg him for about a year to get into racing, and we got the Legend in 2019, and it's kind of took off from there.
Well, looking at you wanted to get into it. He had gotten out of it. And now that you've gotten into it, I would say you are definitely in it both feet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you spend a lot of time at a race shop. You're all the time working on race cars, wrapping race cars, doing that kind of stuff. What do you see as maybe like a long-term goal as to what you want to see yourself as a driver maybe 5-10 years from now?
Hopefully 5-10 years from now, I'm doing better than Davenport is right now. Obviously, those are the guys I'm looking up to right now. It used to be the Bloomquist and Richards and those guys, but obviously they're not racing anymore or not doing much. So the Davenport and the Shepherds are the guys that I want to be better than. I don't want to just be them. I want to be better than them.
Well, hey, you got to start out with a dream. You got to have a plan and have an ambition. It sounds like you kind of got that already under wraps for yourself. So let's talk about, was a Legend the first car you ever drove?
Yeah, 2019 was the first time I ever stepped foot in a race car. It was at Rockfish with Willie Ridenhour. We bought one of his cars, and I tested there for I think twice, and then my third time in the car, we went to Millbridge and raced. And I don't know if anyone's seen the Lightning McQueen move I did, but where he goes on the wall, I pretty much did that too in Millbridge, my first race. So that was a little interesting.
Well, as far as getting laps under your belt and everything, you start 2019. I guess you drove in 20, 21. 22, and hey, for this year, for 2023 North Carolina Speed Weeks, man, it had been a little while since you had been in a Legend race car, and man, you really right out of the gate picked up, hey, like you've been riding one every single weekend, man. You had a great week at North Carolina Speed Weeks. I mean, leading laps every single time you were on the racetrack. I remember night number 1, I think it was, you were a fast time qualifier there. You won your heat race, and let's talk about North Carolina Speed Weeks and what that meant for you to be back in a Legend.
So yeah, Speed Weeks, I guess, is becoming my thing because the first year they did it, I think I won the first night. I got second tonight, and then I was pretty much the top championship runner until the last night, where I had to come from last for a provisional. And last year Speed Weeks, I did about the same leading laps. I think I got 1 or 2 wins, and then this year, I don't know what it was. We just had a bad luck bug with us, and either was losing to Drake Troutman, which, I mean, we'll take getting second to Drake, but the other nights kind of just screwing ourselves or getting screwed by other people, not much you can do. but we put ourselves in a good position every night, and I'm starting to love speed weeks and hoping I can get that speed throughout the rest of the year too.
Well, Norcross Speed Weeks, when Dave Mitchell took over the racetrack, that was something, that he implemented for guys in our local area who can't necessarily, everybody can't go to Florida, to Volusia and to East Bay and to Golden Isles and stay for, weeks at the time. So gives us kind of that big atmosphere of a Norcross Speed Week to race, Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And every year, it seems to me inside the Fayetteville Motor Speedway that event has grown a little bit and bigger every single year. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's been getting crazy big, especially with the legend cars. I think this year, I don't know, I don't remember how we did, but especially Dirt Nationals back in November, I think we had 80, 90 legends. I mean, it was insane. So legends are definitely starting to get big down here, and we had a good amount of limiteds and a ton of 602 late models. That was good to see.
Yeah, it was. And, to talk about the INEX Legends Nationals, we had that event inside the Carolina Bull Ring last year in November, and we are super excited to announce again, for those of you who have not heard, we will have that back again this year for 2023, right back at the Fayetteville Motor Speedway. So you mentioned, let's talk about the Legends. We've talked about Norcross Speed Weeks, how that's grown, what it meant to you to be a part of the INEX Nationals. But you also put a little blurb in there and said something about how many 602 late models. So let's talk about, when I said earlier, you wear a lot of different hats at the racetrack. Talk about being in that 602 late model. That's got to be super exciting. And it's got to be a really big step, to go from a legend into a car like that.
Yeah, going into it, honestly, I was really surprised with how kind of, I don't want to say easy, but easier they were to drive. It was a lot different than driving the Legend, where you're almost full throttle and wheeling it all the way to the right, back to the left. That was a little more, like my dad says, it's like driving a Cadillac compared to a Legend. So, but that was fun. I'm kind of glad I'm out of it after seeing some of the stuff happen on. They're having some really good races, but a lot of stuff getting torn up. So, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. Which I don't know. I might be back in one next few weeks. I'm not sure yet. Talking with a guy right now, so might be back in one soon.
Okay, well, let's talk about, you made mention about, hey, during Norcross Speed Weeks, now, hey, we'll take finishing second to Drake Troutman any day of the week. Talking about Drake, we had Drake on our podcast show, and I had asked him kind of the same question, and maybe you may agree with him. We talked about how he travels all over the country driving UMP modifieds and super late models, and what it's like to drive those cars as opposed to a Legend. And really, Drake's response to that was, hey, that Legend car is probably the hardest thing I've ever had to drive. It's the hardest thing to try to control. Would you agree with that too?
Yeah, legends are nuts to drive. You have to be it's a lot like driving a midget in a non-wing sprint car. You got to be on the wheel all the time, just full sideways. They're definitely the hardest thing I've ever driven.
Yeah. So, but now it is a huge difference. So I would say probably maybe because of the late model, bigger tires all the way around it, wider chassis, a total different stance. Maybe that is, I would agree. I guess, I don't drive race cars. I love to watch them. Love to watch you guys get out there and sling them sideways and hammer down and all that kind of stuff. But maybe is that probably some of the reason that maybe that's a little bit easier to drive?
Yeah, all the wheelbase, that definitely helps. The moving suspension, how you see the late models get up on the left where you're going into the corner and down the straightaway, that really helps, because the Legends, they only move about 2 inches and you're only about 3 inches off the ground, so you're barely moving at all. It's pretty much like an asphalt car on dirt. So there's not a whole lot of traction, and you kind of got to make do with what it gives you.
So maybe it's a little easier to drive because maybe that chassis of a late model maybe rotates over a little bit more. You can feel the car come back to you. Is that what you're talking about whenever, the difference really between a Legend, maybe just how those late models just rotate and they flex, and, nothing like seeing you guys, man, when y'all come down that front straightaway and that right rear goes down and that left front goes up and you just see that left front come up and pull it down the straightaway, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest part, and the tires definitely help too. Being able to have those huge tires and groove them how you want, and sipe them and stuff to keep them cool. And the Legends are pretty much a dumbed down version of pretty much any dirt car because they don't have much moving suspension or anything. So it's all in the drivers. What iNext tries to do with their cars, there's not a whole lot of adjustment area. It's pretty much all the same car, just different springs and go.
Well, when you talk about moving over from a Legend and then going to a 602 late model, then into the Limited, which you've done some of that, then talk about the huge jump when you go to horsepower, when you go to a Super. I know that's got to be just like night and day.
Yeah. So coming from the 602 to the Limited, I really didn't think it was going to happen. We got the Icon from Willie Milligan, who's been helping us out a ton the last year. He's been awesome to work with, and we got that from him. And we tore that up at Cherokee pretty bad in a mid-east race. So we're like, hey, why not put a 525 in it? We already got the motor out. So we put it in. We went to Halifax, and it wasn't terrible. And then I was kind of joking around in January with my dad, saying, hey, we just got this rocket with a super motor in it from Dean Bowen. And I'm like, hey, they're running East Bay and we're not doing nothing. Why don't we go? And then 2 days later, he goes, get ready to go. We're going to East Bay. So that was my first time ever in a super, and we didn't make practice night either. So my first time was a 3-lap hot lap session before we had to qualify. So it was definitely a big step, and it went better than I think a lot of people were expecting. We were getting a lot of questioning why we were even going, and we were just doing it for fun and experience. And I'd say it paid off pretty well.
Yeah, well, let me back up here just a second to reiterate back on something that you just said that I find kind of funny. You know, early on you said, man, I begged and begged and begged for the longest time after my dad got out of a UMP modified to get me into a race car. All right, so now when you start talking about, hey, we're gonna 525 and let's get this car ready. Hey, they're running at East Bay. Hey, let's go. And, within 2 days, I don't think now at the situation where you are and the driver that you're becoming and the program and race team that you guys have, there's probably not a whole lot of arm twisting to your dad to talk him in to let's load up and go into the racetrack. Because, man, I know he loves it. I always love seeing your dad around the racetrack, man. He's always been, super nice to me. And, he's a great guy. And I know, like I said, that pretty sure you're not really twisting his arm like begging, come on, let's go to East Bay. He was probably maybe in the back of his mind thinking maybe he'll want to go if he asks. I'm in.
Yeah, my dad's been awesome. And if you're ever around our Charlie, you might hear us yell at each other a time or two, but that's just because of how much we love the sport and we're so passionate about it. And honestly, I honestly couldn't do anything without my dad. He's my backbone pretty much. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be anywhere near I am. Him and my grandpa have been probably the two biggest people in my life. And yeah, it's a little rough sometimes with him, but he sacrifices so much for me and my brother and even my mom, he sacrifices so much for us. And he's the biggest part of our team, especially when it's only us two most weekends. So
oh yeah, well, let's talk about not only your dad. Yeah, he's a racer. Okay, he's a big race fan. He's a huge part of what you guys do there with Adam Family Racing. But he's probably the biggest part. But I'd probably say neck and neck. Your mom's probably one of the biggest fans. She loves that 75, and she loves that guy that wheels that piece. Would you agree? She's got to be your biggest fan.
Yeah, my mom is most definitely my biggest fan. It sucks she can't get to the track all the time because we just have so much going on around here. But when she does, it's always awesome to have her there.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, listen, race fans, we are on our podcast show tonight. We're talking to Daniel Adam of Adam Family Racing. Races really all over the country, but locally a lot inside the Carolina Bull Ring, our home racetrack, the Fayetteville Motor Speedway. We're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, Barrier Fencing Supply. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a little more in depth of what's on the schedule next and where Daniel Adam will be racing for the remaining part of 2023 right here on the Voice of Victory Lane podcast. Barrier Fencing Supply is a fencing wholesaler and distributor based out of Supply, North Carolina. Whether you need fencing, fencing products, fencing accessories, or various other construction materials related to your fencing needs, we have the products you are looking for at today's most competitive prices around. Ask us today about bulk pricing packages. Call 910-269-8661. Contact us by email at sales@barrierfencingproducts.com. Barrier Fencing Supply, proud supporter of the Voice of Victory Lane podcast. Welcome back to part 2 of another inside edition of the Voice of Victory Lane podcast. The second segment of tonight's show is brought to you in part by Raging Rooster Catering. Tony and Bobby Jackson out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, huge supporters of our podcast, and we're so excited to have them on board with us. They're huge supporters, and we thank them for everything that they do for our podcast. We'll hear from them as we close out tonight's show. Back with us now for part number 2. Again, Daniel Adam, driver the number 75, and you might see him in a Legend. You might see him in a Limited, a 602. You're liable to see him in a super late model. Great young driver. Out of our home racetrack, Fayetteville Motor Speedway, and really represents our racing community all across the country in some of his endeavors to go out and race in bigger races. So, Daniel, let's turn it back to you, and let's talk about, first of all, what is up next for you for 2023. I know coming back April the 15th, we spoke about it the other day, not real sure, but is there a plan? Will you be back in the Legend for that weekend?
Yes, I'll be back in the 75 217 Racing Legend.
Okay, so anything else that you may be doing that weekend? Not going to dabble in the Super with the Clash, or is just going to be Legend car that weekend?
Unfortunately, no Super. My parents are going to the Dominican Republic next week, and they won't be back until Sunday. So, no Super racing for us next weekend, but we'll definitely be there with the Legend and possibly something else, but I can't really announce that yet because it's not 100%.
Okay, well, hey, maybe we might do another show and have a big announcement and tell everybody they heard it first from Daniel Adam right here on the Voice of Victory Lane podcast. We may have to work that out if you're free.
It sounds like a plan to me.
All right, so let's talk about we earlier on in the show we talked about how you developed your love for racing and where it all got started. But, as you look forward to starting 2023, I mean, I know you had to have a blast as you closed out 2022. I mean, every kid's dream, whether you're a driver, whether you're a fan, everyone wants to go to Gateway. And man, not only did you go, you were there in a car. Let's talk about what an experience that was for you, your dad, and your team.
Yeah, Gateway was awesome. The three of us, my dad, Brad Markham, who also helps us a ton, lets me drive his Legend, and myself. We went there, and our awesome sponsor, Bob Mitchell, was there too, RLM Enterprises, and it was just so different than anything we've ever experienced. I mean, the atmosphere of everyone's there, everyone's gunning for each other. You don't know who half the people are, so you don't know what to expect. And being Thursday night kind of screwed us. It was a little slick track, and we didn't really know what to do, and no one really knew what to do. So it was kind of a gamble and too loose, and just kind of set ourselves back in qualifying, which everyone said your first time out, your first time qualifying on the week. That's where it sets up your weekend. So that kind of hurt us. We were one spot out, making to make a B main on Saturday, which would have put us in the last chance to make the show. So, but anyways, we beat, 40, 50 cars. So we'll definitely take that with our little 525 motor we took.
Well, we were able to enjoy part of that with you. We were able to catch up with you and your dad while you were at Gateway. We did a Facebook Live video with you guys, a live feed, just so a lot of your fans here from back home, could hear from you and kind of see exactly what was going on and get a little bit of that experience. And that was super nice, man, of you guys to take time to join us, just to shout out, hey, back at Fayetteville Motor Speedway, Fayetteville, North Carolina, this is what Adam Family Racing is doing. And we really appreciate, man, you guys taking time to do that while you were there.
Yeah, it was awesome to bring it back home, bring that experience. I think it was 5 minutes after I got out of the car, so we were all super pumped and just really happy with how our weekend went. Obviously, we didn't make the show, but we didn't really expect to either, with only having 5 months in a Limited under my belt. Other than that, I had another 6 in the 602, so we had only a year of late model racing, and we didn't expect to do anything other than bring the rear of the pack up. So,
Well, let's talk about. I'm going to put you on the spot here now. I'm not trying to be funny, but I am kind of joking here. But I think this is going to be funny to hear your response. You just talk about going to Gateway and something like you've never experienced before, which I can only imagine. But what would you say would be most exciting? Would it be taking a late model like that around an indoor facility at Gateway, or going wide open throttle in your late model at Rockfish?
oh, I've done both, and they're both really fun. I'd love to be able to do it at Rockfish in a race. But I mean, nothing beats that indoor experience with thousands of fans. Luckily, you can't see the fans when you're on track, so you don't really think about that. Otherwise, it's just you feel everyone refers to it as jet fighters in a stadium, and that's really what it feels like. So that's probably what I would say I'd rather do. But it'd be awesome to be able to race at Rockfish. I mean, that Rockfish is way tighter than Gateway, so there'd be a lot of elbows up racing at Rockfish, and we're trying to get it done. But obviously, it's up to Bill and trying to get us on the schedule. So might see that coming this year. You don't know.
Man, that would be super cool if y'all do that. As long as it doesn't conflict with Fayetteville Motor Speedway, I will definitely be there to see that. So we spoke a little earlier yesterday on the phone, and we talked about what your plans were for the remaining part of the year above and beyond the 15th of April. You were going to talk about, on the Super, going out and just hit maybe some of the big races on the tour. What are some racetracks that you plan on hitting, if you know at this point?
So at this point, really the only thing we have set in stone is this weekend at Lakeview, and then the 22nd, I think it was, at County Line with the Ulm Series. But obviously, the Dream and the World at Eldora are on the list. Hopefully, we'll be able to make those. Those are some bucket list tracks. We're definitely going to try and hit Illinois Speed Weeks, which I think it's in May. It's a whole week of racing in Illinois. So we're from there, and we love those quarter mile black dirt tracks where you can just hammer it going in the corner. So that's pretty much all we got on our schedule. Otherwise, it's wide open, looking for races every weekend and seeing what we're going to do.
Well, it sounds like no doubt that you guys have a plan and you have some goals for the team. You have some dreams as far as, checking off bucket list stuff. And that's really, really cool. So let's talk about, before we step off, before we run out of time here tonight. I know you talked about you and your dad, how y'all work, hand in hand, in the race shop together, at the racetrack together. Let's talk about some of the guys who sponsor you and other individuals that may help you on a weekly basis to get whatever racetrack you're going to.
Yeah, Racing for Heroes Racing for Heroes and RLM. They're big supporters. Racing for Heroes obviously sponsored our trip to Gateway, so they're still on the car right now, which I'll leak it here first. We got a new wrap coming on the limited, so that'll be here in a few weeks.
Hey, it's not going to be better than the Halloween one, was it? The Halloween one, man, the one in October, that thing was hot. I loved it.
It's going to be bright. Any of my Baja Blast Mountain Dew fans, you're going to love it. Obviously, we got RLM Enterprises. Bob Mitchell, my dad used to drive for him back in the day, so he's a big sponsor of ours. My hat, Justin L. Langdon Electrical Contractor. He's one of the best electrical contractors out here. Gray Bar, they do a ton of conduit and stuff. So you got I Buy Cars, Ray Campbell, that he sponsors all the pack cars at Fayetteville. He's sponsoring us this year. Bill Steen Shocks, Team Triple X, Dave Mitchell. He's awesome. We've become really good friends with him. He's been awesome to us. Sunoco Race Fuels, the Restore Warehouse. That's a really good family there. They're awesome to us. We used to be able to see them every weekend, but now we still try and get together with them. So I'm sure I'm missing some. Spiffies.
Well, let's talk about that guy with Triple X Race Services, Bill Steen Shocks. It's almost kind of like that shock program that Dave Mitchell has with Team Triple X. It's kind of like starting to set the woods on fire, man. A lot of people, I've had people call me trying to get his phone number to try to get up with him. And so his shock package is a pretty big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think we brought 3 or 4 customers to him just this month alone. In March, we brought a few, and he's awesome to us. He's helping us whenever we need anything. If we ever need anything rebuilt, he's on the spot within that week. It's done, and he's just been awesome to us.
Yeah, well, that is a great deal. We appreciate, I always love to give drivers an opportunity to thank their sponsors and to thank the people who help them on a weekly basis, monthly basis, however they can contribute. Because man, it takes a lot, to run just one car. Well, in your situation, you got 1, 2, possibly 3, that could, it keeps you very busy for sure. And man, we just thank you for taking time out of your schedule, man. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, to be on the show tonight and to talk about your racing career and your team and your family and your sponsors. And man, it just really means a lot because we really love to focus on our local guys at our racetrack at Fayetteville Motor Speedway. And we really appreciate you being on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
All right. Well, listen, maybe we'll come up with some big news. If you want to leak it out a little bit later on by text or by phone call to me one day, then we can just kind of slide that right on in because I know a guy who kind of runs this show. So we can get you out first if you want to.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Or whenever I got anything big, I'll let you know first.
That sounds like a deal. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Daniel Adam, driver the number 75, maybe in a Legend, could be in a Limited, could be in something else coming up. We don't know, or could be in a Super, anywhere. You can follow them on Facebook. And anytime you're over the racetrack, hey, you see those guys at their trailer. Hey, they're very welcoming to fans. Come by, say hello. They got a lot of gear all the time, cool sweatshirts, T-shirts. Stop by and see those guys and get to know Daniel Adam, one of our local drivers at the Fayetteville Motor Speedway. Again, we thank everyone for watching tonight. You can follow us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, and also visit our Facebook page and share this podcast so everyone in our area can see an in-depth look of Adam Family Racing. Again, the second part of our show tonight has been brought to you by Raging Rooster Catering. We'll hear from them as we close. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, hey, be on the lookout. We could be coming to a racetrack near you, and you could be who we're talking about next, right here on the Voice of Victory Lane podcast. Good night, everybody. Tonight's show is being brought to you in part by Raging Rooster Catering out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We cater any event, big or small, groups of 30 people or more, weddings, holiday events, or festivals. Call us today, 910-237-4565. Contact us by email at jackson.bobby@yahoo.com. Follow us on Facebook at Raging Rooster Catering. We invite you to come get you some. Raging Rooster Catering, proud supporter of the Voice of Victory Lane podcast.